massive chamber of the Galactic Council stretched beyond what human eyes could comprehend. Crystalline walls pulsed with bioluminescent veins, casting shifting patterns of blue and purple across the assembled delegates. Thousands of alien species had gathered for this historic moment, their various forms creating a tapestry of evolution's endless creativity. Ambassador Sarah Chun stood alone at the center of it all, her small human frame dwarfed by the towering structures around her. The weight of representing her entire species pressed down on her shoulders like a physical force. Behind her, holographic displays showed images of Earth, blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling in atmospheric dance. The Zephyrian High Arbiter rose from its floating throne, its gas-formed body shifting between transparent and opaque as emotions flickered through its consciousness. When it spoke, the words came not as sound but as direct neural transmission, understood by every species present regardless of their sensory capabilities. "We gather today to address the human question," the Arbiter announced, its mental voice carrying the authority of eons. "For 3 centuries, humanity has been under observation. The data collected is disturbing." Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs, but she kept her expression neutral. She had trained for this moment her entire life, studying xenobiology, diplomatic protocols, and the complex web of galactic politics. But nothing could have prepared her for the reality of standing judgment before 10,000 alien civilizations. The Kethvar representative, a creature resembling a crystalline tree with pulsing nodes of light, projected images into the chamber's central display. Scenes of human history unfolded in painful detail: wars, environmental destruction, the brief period of nuclear brinksmanship that had nearly ended their species before they reached the stars. "Observe the pattern." The Kethvar's harmonic voice resonated through the chamber. "Aggression, violence, destruction. In every scenario our models predict, human expansion leads to galactic destabilization." Murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates, some chittering, others harmonizing, a few releasing chemical signals that the chamber's atmosphere processors translated into meaning. The general consensus was clear: humanity was dangerous. The Vorthan delegate, a graceful being of flowing energy contained within a humanoid shell, added its voice to the proceedings. "The humans show promise in individual achievements. Their curiosity drives remarkable innovation. Their emotional depth creates art that moves even us. But, as a collective, they remain trapped in primitive behavioral patterns." Sarah finally stepped forward, her voice amplified by the chamber's systems. "Honored delegates, I acknowledge our species' violent past. But we have grown. We've ended wars, healed our planet, and reached for the stars with peaceful intentions. Judge us not by our yesterday, but by our potential tomorrow." A new voice cut through the chamber like a blade through silk. Praetor Zixthara of the Hegemony materialized from the shadows, his reptilian form encased in adaptive armor that seemed to absorb light itself. The Hegemony controlled nearly a quarter of the galaxy's military might, and their words carried the weight of force behind them. "Potential," Zixthara hissed, his mechanical translator giving his words a cold, metallic edge. "The galaxy is littered with species who showed potential. The Yavanari had potential before they glassed their own homeworld. The Stellari had potential before their expansion wars consumed 3 sectors. Humans display the same patterns: aggressive expansion, resource competition, territorial disputes." The Praetor gestured, and new images filled the chamber. Human colonies on the frontier, mining operations on asteroid belts, the early skirmishes with automated defense systems that some species had mistaken for first contact attempts. "They probe our borders," Zixthara continued. "They expand without permission. They take what they need without asking. This is not the behavior of a species ready for galactic citizenship." Sarah felt the weight of 10,000 alien gazes upon her. She thought of her children back on Earth, of the billions of humans who would never know why their dreams of joining the galactic community were about to be crushed. But she also thought of humanity's greatest strength, the ability to endure, to adapt, to survive against impossible odds. "Praetor Zixthara speaks of patterns," she said, her voice growing stronger. "But he ignores the most important pattern of all. humanity's capacity for growth. We learned to stop fighting each other. We learned to heal our world. We learned to reach beyond our solar system. Every challenge has made us stronger, not weaker. The crystalline collective's representative, a being of living mineral formations that shifted and reformed as it communicated, created a complex harmonic pattern. The chamber's translators struggled to convey its meaning. Growth implies change. Change implies unpredictability. Unpredictability implies danger. For hours, the debate raged. Some species argued for humanity's potential, citing their rapid technological advancement and cultural achievements. Others pointed to historical precedents of aggressive species disrupting galactic peace. The ethereal communion shared memories of ancient conflicts, their ghostly forms flickering between dimensions as they projected scenes of galactic wars that had cost trillions of lives. As the deliberations continued, Sarah noticed patterns in the opposition. The most vocal critics were species that had either faced internal conflicts or had been victims of aggressive expansion themselves. They saw in humanity a reflection of their own dark pasts, or the shadows of species that had threatened them. The hegemony's position was different. Zixthara and his allies weren't afraid of human violence. They were afraid of human competition. The way he spoke of expansion and resource acquisition revealed a territorial concern masked as moral objection. The hegemony had grown comfortable as one of the galaxy's dominant military powers, and they saw humanity as a potential threat to that dominance. When the formal arguments concluded, the High Arbiter called for the ancient ritual of judgment. Each species would project their decision into the collective consciousness pool, where the combined will of the galaxy would determine humanity's fate. The process was both beautiful and terrifying to witness. Streams of thought light flowed from every delegate, weaving together in the chamber's center like cosmic DNA. Colors Sarah had no names for spiraled and danced, carrying the fears, hopes, and judgments of countless civilizations. The pattern that emerged was unmistakable. The galaxy had decided. By the collective will of the Galactic Council, the High Arbiter announced, humanity is deemed unfit for galactic citizenship. The quarantine protocols established around the Sol system will become permanent. No human vessel will be permitted beyond the heliopause. No galactic technology will be shared. No communication will be maintained. The words hit Sarah like physical blows. She had expected this outcome, had prepared for it intellectually, but the reality was devastating. Humanity would be alone, cut off from the vast community of stars that stretched across the galaxy. Furthermore, the Arbiter continued, to ensure compliance and prevent future complications, economic and technological sanctions will be imposed. Any attempt to breach the quarantine will be met with decisive action. Zixthara's satisfaction was palpable as he added, the humans will have their little solar system to play in. Perhaps in a few millennia, when they have evolved beyond their current limitations, they may petition again. Sarah straightened her shoulders, drawing on reserves of dignity she didn't know she possessed. Honored delegates, I accept this judgment on behalf of my species. But I want to leave you with one thought. You have not eliminated a threat today. You have created one. Humanity's greatest achievements have always come when we faced impossible odds. Today, you have given us the greatest challenge in our history. The chamber fell silent at her words. Some delegates seemed unsettled by the quiet confidence in her voice. Others dismissed it as empty bravado from a defeated species. As the session concluded and the delegates began to disperse, Sarah remained standing in the center of the chamber. The holographic images of Earth still flickered behind her, but now they seemed less like a plea for acceptance and more like a promise. The Vorthan delegate approached her as the chamber emptied. Ambassador Chun, I voted in your species' favor. I hope you know that not all of us feared humanity's potential. Sarah nodded, managing a small smile. Thank you. But this isn't the end of our story. This is just the beginning of a new chapter. As she walked toward the transport that would carry her back to Earth, Sarah was already thinking ahead. The galaxy had made its choice, but humanity would make theirs too. They had been given the ultimate motivation, survive and thrive despite impossible odds, or prove the Council right by failing. She thought about the great leaders of human history who had faced similar moments. those who had stood at the crossroads between extinction and transcendence. They had always found a way forward, not in spite of the challenges they faced, but because of them. The transport lifted off from the Council station, carrying the last human diplomat away from galactic civilization. But as Earth grew larger in the view screen, Sarah felt something unexpected rising in her chest. Not defeat, but determination. Humanity had been alone before, standing on an African savanna with nothing but stone tools and the fire of intelligence burning in their minds. They had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and their own worst impulses. Now they would face their greatest test yet, building a civilization powerful enough to challenge the galaxy itself. The message she would carry back to Earth was simple. The galaxy had just made the biggest mistake in its history. They had given humanity something more powerful than any technology or alliance. They had given them a reason to become unstoppable. As the transport entered Earth's atmosphere, Sarah began composing her report. But, in her mind, she was already writing something else. The first chapter of humanity's transformation from a quarantined species to the force that would reshape the galaxy forever. #The Awakening. The emergency session of the United Earth Government convened within hours of Ambassador Chen's return. Representatives from every nation, colony, and space habitat gathered in the vast amphitheater beneath New Geneva, their faces reflecting the same mixture of shock, anger, and determination that Sarah had felt in the council chamber. President Maria Santos, elected just months before to lead humanity's first truly unified government, stood at the podium as Sarah delivered her report. The words fell like stones into still water, creating ripples of reaction that spread through the assembled delegates. "Cut off," whispered the Mars colonial representative, Dr. James Okafor. "After everything we've achieved, they treat us like criminals." Dr. Elena Vasquez, head of the Science Directorate, leaned forward in her chair. "What exactly does this quarantine entail? Are we talking about a physical barrier?" Sarah activated the holographic display, showing readings her ship had taken during the return journey. "The barrier is already in place. Energy fields extending in all directions from the heliopause. Our best analysis suggests it's some kind of spatial distortion technology. Anything attempting to cross it would be compressed to quantum foam." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. Humanity had dreamed of joining the galactic community for generations, ever since the first radio signals had confirmed they weren't alone. Now, in a single day, those dreams lay shattered. Admiral Rebecca Torres of the Solar Defense Force stood up. "What about our survey ships? We have 17 deep space missions currently beyond the barrier." "Recalled or destroyed," Sarah replied quietly. "The Council gave our people 6 hours to return to soul space. Those who couldn't make it." She paused, the weight of the lost lives heavy in her voice. "The barrier doesn't distinguish between willing and unwilling violations." The chamber fell silent. 137 people had died in an instant, their ships crushed by alien technology as they desperately tried to reach home. The message was clear: the galaxy's patience with humanity had ended. President Santos finally spoke, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they faced. "The question before us is simple. Do we accept this judgment and confine ourselves to our solar system, or do we reject it and forge our own path?" "What path?" demanded Dr. Okafor. "They have technology we can barely comprehend. Their weakest member species could probably glass Earth without breaking a sweat." But Dr. Vasquez was already standing, her eyes bright with the fire that had driven humanity's greatest discoveries. "That's exactly why we can't give up. James, you're thinking like they want us to think, like defeated primitives grateful for whatever scraps they allow us." She activated her personal display, showing technical readouts that made several delegates lean forward with interest. "I've been analyzing the barrier technology from Ambassador Chen's sensor data. It's incredibly sophisticated, yes, but it follows patterns we can understand. More importantly, it reveals something crucial about galactic civilization." The display shifted, showing energy consumption models and technological complexity matrices. "They're conservative. This barrier technology is probably centuries old, maybe millennia. It's robust, reliable, and completely stagnant. They built it once and never improved it." President Santos stepped down from the podium. Explain. Every species we encountered during first contact showed the same pattern, Sarah added, understanding where Elena was heading. Advanced technology, but no innovation. The Kethvar have been using the same crystal matrix computers for 3,000 years. The Vorthan energy manipulation techniques haven't evolved in recorded history. They've achieved technological stability, but they've stopped growing. Elena nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. They've reached a plateau and decided that's good enough. But humans? We've never known how to stop improving. We've never accepted good enough as an answer. Admiral Torres crossed her arms. That's a beautiful theory, but it doesn't solve our immediate problem. We're trapped in one solar system while they control the galaxy. Are we trapped? Asked Dr. Chen Wei, the quantum physicist whose theories had made faster-than-light communication possible. Or have they just given us the greatest laboratory in human history? He stood, his usually reserved demeanor replaced by an intensity that commanded attention. Consider what we have here. 8 planets, dozens of moons, asteroid belts rich in rare minerals, and a star that will burn for billions of years. More importantly, we have something they've forgotten how to use: desperation. The chamber buzzed with quiet conversations as delegates began to grasp the implications. Dr. Chun continued, desperation bred innovation. When our ancestors faced extinction, they didn't accept defeat, they invented agriculture. When they faced natural disasters, they built cities. When they faced disease, they created medicine. Every time humanity faced an impossible challenge, we became something more than we were before. President Santos felt the mood in the room shift. The despair that had filled the chamber moments before was transforming into something else. The same stubborn refusal to quit that had carried humanity from stone tools to starships. What are you proposing? She asked. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward again. We stopped playing by their rules. They expect us to either stagnate like them or destroy ourselves trying to break their barrier. Instead, we become something they can't imagine, a civilization that grows stronger in isolation. She gestured, and the holographic display showed projections of solar system development. We have the resources and the knowledge to build an empire right here. Not just colonies, but an integrated civilization spanning every world, every moon, every asteroid. We turn Sol into something the galaxy has never seen. And then what? Admiral Torres challenged. We still can't leave. Sarah smiled for the first time since her return. Who says we need to leave? Let them come to us. The plan that emerged over the following days was audacious beyond anything humanity had attempted before. Instead of expanding outward into the galaxy, they would expand inward, transforming their solar system into a showcase of human ingenuity and determination. The asteroid belt would become a vast industrial complex, with mining operations and factories that dwarfed anything on Earth. Jupiter's moons would house research facilities dedicated to pushing the boundaries of science and technology. Saturn's rings would be harvested to build structures that spanned entire planetary orbits. But the most ambitious project was the transformation of Earth itself. Rather than depleting their homeworld to fuel expansion, they would make it the crown jewel of human achievement. Cities that floated on air, oceans that served as massive aquaculture facilities, weather control systems that ensured perfect conditions for both human habitation and natural ecosystems. Dr. Chinwei's team began working on technologies that would make the galactic species' achievements look primitive by comparison. Quantum computers that could simulate entire universes. Energy systems that tapped directly into the fundamental forces of reality. Materials that were stronger than anything nature had produced. The Space Elevator Project, shelved for decades due to material limitations, was revived with new urgency. But instead of one elevator, they would build a dozen, turning Earth's orbit into a bustling hub of commerce and industry. The moon would be hollowed out and converted into a massive shipyard, capable of constructing vessels that would make the Council's finest warships look like toys. As word of the quarantine spread to the colonies, something unexpected happened. Instead of despair, the frontier settlements responded with a surge of productivity and innovation that surprised even the planners. The people of Mars began expanding their terraforming efforts, determined to create a second Earth within a generation. The mining colonies in the asteroid belt volunteered for dangerous experiments that pushed the boundaries of what was possible in zero gravity. Dr. Vasquez found herself leading a team of the brightest minds humanity had ever produced, all focused on a single goal: creating technologies so advanced that the galaxy would beg for access to them. They worked 18-hour days, driven by a shared vision of humanity, not as the exiled primitives the Council believed them to be, but as the architects of something unprecedented. The breakthrough came 6 months into the project. Dr. Chin's team had been working on manipulating the quantum foam that underlied space-time itself, trying to understand how the Council's barrier technology worked. What they discovered was far more significant. "We've been thinking about this wrong," Chin announced during a late-night planning session. The Council sees technology as a tool for maintaining stability. They build something that works, and then stop improving it. But what if we approach technology as a form of evolution? He activated a display showing molecular-level machinery that seemed to writhe and shift like living tissue. Nanotechnology that adapts and improves itself. Artificial intelligence that doesn't just process data, but actually learns and grows. Ships that don't just travel through space, but reshape space around them. The implications were staggering. While the galaxy used static technology, humanity would create technology that evolved, that became more capable with each passing day. They wouldn't just build an empire, they would grow one. President Santos reviewed the plans with a mixture of awe and concern. The resource requirements are enormous. We're talking about reorganizing the entire solar system. Yes, Admiral Torres agreed. But consider the alternative. We sit here for the next 1,000 years, gradually stagnating until we become exactly what the Council thinks we are: just another primitive species that couldn't handle galactic citizenship. Sarah looked at the assembled leaders, seeing in their faces the same determination she had felt standing before the Council. There's something else to consider. The Council made a strategic mistake. They showed us their technology without understanding our nature. Now we know what they're capable of, and, more importantly, we know their limitations. She activated her personal display, showing energy signatures and technological patterns from her time at the Council station. Their barrier technology is impressive, but it's also revealing. It shows they think defensively, not offensively. They built a wall to keep us in, but walls work both ways. When we're ready, that same barrier technology could keep them out. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't just planning to build an empire within their solar system. They were planning to make Sol into an impregnable fortress. A fortress that would eventually become so advanced, so powerful, that the galaxy would have no choice but to acknowledge humanity as an equal. Dr. Vasquez smiled grimly. Let them think they've solved the human problem. While they congratulate themselves on containing the threat, we'll be becoming something they never imagined possible. By the time they realize their mistake, it will be too late to correct it. President Santos looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. Each one reflected the same quiet confidence, the same unshakable belief in their species' ability to overcome any challenge. The galaxy had meant to break their spirit, but instead had forged it into something unbreakable. "Very well," she said finally. "Let's begin." The galaxy wanted to see what humans do when we're cornered. I think they're about to find out. As the meeting adjourned and the leaders dispersed to begin the greatest undertaking in human history, Sarah remained behind, staring at the holographic display of the solar system. In her mind, she could already see what it would become, a beacon of human achievement that would shine so brightly, the galaxy would have no choice but to notice. The Council had thought they were ending humanity's story. Instead, they had just written the first sentence of an epic that would reshape the stars themselves. The transformation. 25 years had passed since the quarantine began, and the Sol system was unrecognizable. Where once sparse colonies had struggled to survive on hostile worlds, vast cities now sprawled across planetary surfaces, their gleaming spires reaching toward the stars with unmistakable defiance. Captain Marcus Rodriguez guided his patrol ship through the orbital traffic surrounding Earth, marveling at the sight that never failed to inspire him. 12 space elevators now connected the planet to orbital installations, their carbon nanotube cables sparkling in the sunlight like cosmic spider silk. The traffic flowing up and down those lifelines carried more cargo in a single hour than the old space shuttles had moved in their entire operational history. Control, this is Patrol 7 requesting clearance for Jupiter transit. Marcus spoke into his comm unit, though he knew the answer before asking. The shipping schedules were so precisely coordinated that delays measured in seconds could disrupt supply chains spanning the entire system. Patrol 7, you are cleared for immediate departure. Fair winds and following seas, Captain. Marcus smiled at the old naval blessing, adapted for humanity's new maritime frontier. The void between worlds had become as familiar to human crews as Earth's oceans had been to their ancestors. More familiar, in some cases, he had been born on Europa and had never actually sailed on planetary water. His ship, the Indomitable Spirit, was a masterpiece of human engineering that would have seemed like magic to the designers of humanity's first spacecraft. Its hull was composed of programmable matter that could adapt its configuration for different mission requirements. The engines tapped quantum fluctuations to achieve thrust without reaction mass. Most remarkably, the ship's artificial intelligence was truly intelligent, not just following programming, but actually thinking, learning, and growing with each mission. Spirit, plot a course for the Galilean Research Consortium. Priority message delivery. The ship's AI manifested as a shimmering hologram in the pilot's chair beside him, a choice it had made after deciding that human crews performed better with a visible interface. It had chosen the appearance of a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and an expression of perpetual curiosity. Course plotted Marcus. I should warn you, the research facility is currently conducting gravitational experiments that may interfere with our sensors. Nothing dangerous, just interesting. That was Spirit's way of saying that the scientists were once again pushing the boundaries of what was considered safe or sane. Marcus had learned to appreciate his ship's understated warnings. They usually meant he was about to witness something that would redefine the possible. As they traveled through the asteroid belt, Marcus observed the industrial complex that had transformed the region into humanity's manufacturing heart. Entire asteroids had been converted into automated factories, their surfaces bristling with construction arrays that never stopped working. The largest installation, built into the asteroid series, now produced more advanced technology in a day than Earth had managed in a year before the quarantine. But it was the people that impressed Marcus most. Every human he encountered, whether born on Earth or in the frontier colonies, carried themselves with a quiet confidence that spoke of absolute faith in their species' destiny. The quarantine had not broken humanity's spirit. It had forged that spirit into something unbreakable. His destination, the Galilean Research Consortium, occupied the 4 largest moons of Jupiter. Europa had become the center for biological research, its subsurface oceans now teeming with engineered ecosystems that could thrive in environments no natural life could survive. Ganymede housed the particle physics laboratories that had produced humanity's most revolutionary discoveries. Io's volcanic energy-powered computational systems that simulated the behavior of entire galaxies. And Callisto served as the testing ground for technologies so advanced that even their creators weren't entirely sure how they worked. As the Indomitable Spirit approached Europa, Marcus received a priority communication from the surface. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now Director of Advanced Research, appeared on his main screen. 25 years had added silver to her hair, but her eyes burned with the same intensity that had driven humanity's greatest transformation. Captain Rodriguez, I hope you're bringing good news from Earth. We're at a critical juncture in the project. Marcus transmitted the sealed orders he carried, watching Elena's expression as she reviewed them. Her smile told him everything he needed to know. Permission had been granted for the final phase. Excellent, she said. You'll want to dock at Callisto first. Dr. Chun has something to show you that will change how you think about space travel. The journey to Callisto took them past some of the most impressive engineering projects in human history. The orbital habitats surrounding Jupiter housed millions of people, their rotating sections generating artificial gravity for those who preferred a more Earth-like environment. Solar collectors the size of continents gathered energy from the distant sun, while fusion reactors provided backup power that exceeded the total output of Earth's old power grid. But The most remarkable sight was the construction project in Jupiter's upper atmosphere. Massive platforms floated in the gas giant's clouds, harvesting helium-3 and hydrogen for the fusion reactors while simultaneously studying atmospheric dynamics that had puzzled scientists for centuries. The platforms were alive, in a sense, organic machines that adapted to changing conditions while carrying out their missions with an efficiency that would have seemed impossible to previous generations. Dr. Chun Wei met Marcus personally at the Callisto docking facility, an honor that spoke to the importance of the day's demonstration. The physicist had aged gracefully, though Marcus noticed that his eyes held depths that suggested he had seen things that changed a person fundamentally. "Captain, welcome to Callisto. I think you're going to find today's test quite illuminating." They traveled by transport to the moon's far side, where a facility the size of a small city had been constructed in secrecy. As they approached, Marcus realized he was looking at something that defied his understanding of engineering principles. The structure seemed to exist in a state of constant flux, its surfaces shifting and flowing like liquid metal while maintaining perfect structural integrity. "Adaptive architecture," Chin explained, noticing Marcus's confusion. "The building reconfigures itself based on the experiments being conducted inside. Today, it happens to be optimized for testing our latest breakthrough in propulsion technology." Inside the facility, Marcus found himself in a chamber that stretched farther than seemed possible given the building's external dimensions. The walls curved away into shadows that suggested spaces folded back on themselves in ways that hurt to contemplate. "Spatial manipulation," Chin said casually, as if discussing the weather. "We've learned to convince space itself that it's larger on the inside than the outside. The techniques have applications for everything from housing to weapons systems." At the center of the vast chamber sat what appeared to be a small spacecraft, no larger than a fighter jet. Its hull gleamed with the same adaptive materials used throughout the facility, but Marcus could sense something different about it, a quality that made his instincts whisper warnings about approaching too closely. "This," Chin announced proudly, "is the prototype for humanity's new generation of starships. We call it the Voidwalker." A woman emerged from behind the craft, her movements flowing with an inhuman grace that identified her as one of the enhanced humans who worked in the most dangerous research environments. Genetic modifications had given her the ability to survive in hard vacuum, while neural implants allowed her to interface directly with advanced technology. "Captain Rodriguez, meet Dr. Sarah Okafor, our lead test pilot, and the first human to achieve faster-than-light travel." Marcus stared at the woman, then at the ship, then back at Chun. "That's impossible. The quarantine barrier doesn't affect this type of propulsion," Sarah interrupted, her enhanced voice carrying harmonic frequencies that made the words seem to resonate in multiple dimensions. "We're not breaking through the barrier, Captain. We're going around it." She gestured to the Voidwalker, and its hull became transparent, revealing an interior that looked more like a work of art than a machine. Flowing curves guided energy through pathways that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions, while crystalline structures pulsed with patterns that reminded Marcus of neural networks. "The Council's barrier operates in normal space-time," Chin explained. "But we've learned to access what we call hyperspace, a layer of reality that exists beneath the quantum foam. Ships equipped with our new drives don't travel through space. They travel through the structure that creates space." Marcus felt his worldview restructuring itself around this revelation. "You've achieved faster-than-light travel. Real FTL, not just the quantum communication arrays." "Better than that," Sarah added. "This drive system makes Council technology look like steam engines. We can cross the galaxy in hours, not centuries. More importantly, we can do it while completely undetectable by their sensors." The implications hit Marcus like a physical force. Humanity hadn't just broken free of their prison. They had developed the ability to move through the galaxy as invisible ghosts, studying their former captors without being detected. "How long have we been able to do this?" he asked. 6 months for viable prototypes," Chen replied. "We've already sent reconnaissance missions to observe Council activities. What we've learned is illuminating." A holographic display materialized, showing star maps with overlaid intelligence data. Marcus recognized some of the stellar configurations from the diplomatic archives, but The additional information painted a picture that was both fascinating and disturbing. The galaxy is stagnating. Dr. Vasquez's voice came from behind them as she entered the chamber. Worse than we initially believed. Some species haven't made a significant technological advancement in millennia. Others are actually regressing, losing capabilities their ancestors possessed. The display shifted to show images of alien worlds, their cities, and installations unchanged from the records of humanity's first contact. Where humans might expect to see growth and development, there was only endless repetition of the same patterns. They've achieved technological equilibrium, Chen continued. Stable, efficient, and completely static. They've forgotten how to innovate because they've never needed to. Their technology is so far ahead of natural challenges that they've never faced pressure to improve. Sarah moved to another control panel, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to manipulate systems faster than normal humans could perceive. New images appeared, recent surveillance footage from the edge of Council space. But there are cracks in their stability, she said. Resource depletion in the core worlds. Political tensions between species that haven't been resolved because they've never had to be. Military forces that haven't faced real challenges in so long that they've forgotten how to adapt to new threats. Marcus studied the images, his military training allowing him to spot the weaknesses that the intelligence team had identified. Defensive installations that followed predictable patterns. Ship designs that prioritized efficiency over adaptability. Command structures that relied on established protocols rather than flexible thinking. You're talking about war, he realized. No, Elena corrected. We're talking about revolution. The galaxy doesn't need to be conquered. It needs to be awakened. Humanity's greatest gift has always been our ability to force change, to refuse to accept the status quo. The Council thought they were protecting the galaxy from us, but they were actually protecting it from the possibility of growth. Chen activated another display, showing projections of galactic development under different scenarios. Imagine what could be achieved if the galaxy's species rediscovered innovation, if they stopped maintaining their current level and started reaching for something better. The scientific discoveries, the cultural exchanges, the artistic achievements. It would be a renaissance on a galactic scale. The weight of what they were proposing settled on Marcus like a physical burden. Humanity wasn't just planning to break free of their quarantine. They were planning to transform the entire galaxy, not through conquest or destruction, but by reintroducing the concept of progress to species that had forgotten how to dream. How do we begin, he asked. Sarah smiled, an expression that was both human and something more. We already have. 30 Voidwalker ships are currently positioned throughout Council space, gathering intelligence and preparing for the next phase. When we're ready, we'll make contact, not as supplicants begging for admission to their club, but as equals offering them something they've forgotten they need. Change, Elena added. Growth. The chance to become something more than they are. Marcus looked around the chamber at the faces of humanity's brightest minds, seeing in them the same determination that had carried their species from stone tools to starships. But now that determination was focused on something larger than human survival. It was focused on awakening an entire galaxy. The quarantine had been meant to contain humanity's influence. Instead, it had given them 25 years to develop capabilities that made them not just equal to the galactic powers, but potentially superior. The Council had feared human expansion, but what they were about to face was something far more dangerous, human evolution. When do we begin the contact phase? Marcus asked. Elena's smile carried the weight of 25 years of planning. Tomorrow. It's time the galaxy learned what humans do when they're told they can't do something. As Marcus prepared for departure, carrying orders that would set in motion humanity's return to galactic affairs, he realized that the species the Council had quarantined no longer existed. In its place stood something new, not just human, but humanity elevated to its full potential. The galaxy was about to discover what they had created when they tried to cage the human spirit. The return Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the flagship Horizon's Edge, watching as her fleet prepared for humanity's first official return to galactic space in 25 years. The ship itself was a testament to how far humans had evolved during their isolation. Its hull seemed to exist in a state of controlled quantum uncertainty, making it effectively invisible to conventional sensors while radiating an aura of barely contained power. Around her, 50 of humanity's most advanced vessels maintained perfect formation in the void beyond Pluto's orbit. Each ship was unique, its design tailored to specific mission parameters by artificial intelligences that had learned to think like artists as well as engineers. The result was a fleet that looked more like a school of exotic deep-sea creatures than traditional warships, all flowing lines and adaptive surfaces that shifted constantly in response to changing conditions. "Admiral, we're receiving the final authorization from Earth Command," reported Commander Lisa Park, her voice carrying the subtle harmonics that identified her as one of the enhanced humans who served as interfaces between organic and artificial intelligence. "Operation Renaissance is approved for immediate execution," Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of history settling on her shoulders. She was the daughter of Ambassador Sarah Chun, the woman who had carried news of humanity's exile back to Earth a generation ago. Now she would be the one to announce humanity's return, not as petitioners seeking readmission to galactic society, but as harbingers of change. "Signal the fleet," she commanded. "All ships, prepare for hyperspace transition. Our destination is the Nexus." The Nexus was the galaxy's political and economic heart, a massive space station that served as the Council's primary meeting place. Built at the intersection of major trade routes, it housed representatives from over 10,000 species and conducted business that affected trillions of lives across the galaxy. It was also the most heavily defended location in known space, protected by weapons systems that could reduce entire fleets to cosmic dust. As her ships prepared for departure, Sarah reflected on the intelligence they had gathered during their years of secret observation. The galaxy had changed very little since humanity's exile, but the changes that had occurred were revealing. Several species had petitioned for reduced council representation, finding the responsibilities of galactic citizenship too burdensome for their stagnant societies. Others had requested isolation protocols similar to humanity's quarantine, preferring the stability of controlled contact to the uncertainties of open diplomacy. Most concerning was the rise of the hegemony's influence within the council structure. Praetor Zixthara, now elevated to Supreme Commander, had used humanity's exile as justification for expanding military oversight of problematic species. What had begun as a quarantine system had evolved into a tool for enforcing conformity throughout the galaxy. "Hyperspace generators online," reported the ship's AI, its voice carrying the same refined confidence that characterized all of humanity's artificial intelligences. "Fleet synchronization at 99.7% efficiency." Sarah took one last look at Earth, visible as a blue spark in the distance. 25 years ago, that world had been home to a defeated species facing an uncertain future. Now it was the capital of an empire that spanned their entire solar system, populated by humans who had transformed themselves as completely as they had transformed their environment. "Execute jump," she ordered. The transition to hyperspace was nothing like the violent wrenching that characterized most FDL systems. Instead, reality seemed to gently fold around the fleet, carrying them through dimensions that existed beneath the normal structure of space-time. To outside observers, the ships simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, not moved, but temporarily edited out of the universe itself. When they emerged into normal space 12 hours later, they were in the heart of galactic civilization. The Nexus stretched before them like a metallic planet, its surface alive with the traffic of countless species going about their daily business. Orbital platforms extended in all directions, creating a complex web of commerce and bureaucracy that processed the needs of an entire galaxy. The reaction to their arrival was immediate and chaotic. "Unknown vessels, you are in violation of Council Directive 2847. Identify yourselves immediately or face defensive action," came the challenge from Nexus Control, transmitted in 17 different languages simultaneously. Sarah smiled grimly. "Nexus Control, this is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Human Star Empire. We are here to address the Galactic Council regarding the illegal quarantine of our species. Please arrange for diplomatic protocols." The silence that followed stretched for nearly 30 seconds, an eternity in diplomatic communications. Sarah could imagine the chaos erupting in the control centers as beings who had forgotten about humanity suddenly found themselves confronting the reality of human return. Admiral Chun, came a new voice, speaking with the measured tones of a professional diplomat. This is Ambassador Veltar of the Kethvar. I must inform you that humans are prohibited from entering council space under the provisions of obsolete legislation. Sarah interrupted smoothly. The quarantine was imposed on a species that no longer exists. We are not the humans who were exiled 25 years ago. We are what that species chose to become. As if to emphasize her point, the human fleet began a demonstration that had been carefully choreographed to showcase their new capabilities. Ships transformed their configurations in real time, flowing between forms optimized for combat, exploration, and diplomacy. Others demonstrated their mastery of space-time manipulation by creating localized fields where cause and effect operated according to human preferences rather than universal constants. The most dramatic display came from the horizon's edge itself, which briefly existed in 7 different locations simultaneously while maintaining continuous communication from each position. To the watching aliens, it appeared that humanity had learned to violate the fundamental laws of physics through sheer force of will. How are you doing this? Ambassador Veltar's voice carried the harmonic patterns that indicated extreme agitation among his species. Our sensors detect no conventional propulsion, no recognizable technology signatures. Your ships appear to be operating on principles we don't understand. That's because you stopped trying to understand, Sarah replied. You achieved stability and called it success. We achieved exile and called it opportunity. 25 years ago, you judged us unfit for galactic citizenship based on our potential for conflict and change. Today, we return to offer the galaxy something it has forgotten it needs, the possibility of becoming something more. The communication channels filled with overlapping transmissions as word of humanity's return spread throughout the Nexus. Sarah listened to the babble of alien languages, her enhanced hearing picking out fragments of conversation that revealed the depth of surprise and confusion her arrival had caused. The Zephyrian High Arbiter's mental voice cut through the chaos with the authority of office. Admiral Chun, you will withdraw your vessels immediately and return to your designated quarantine zone. The Council's judgment regarding humanity remains in effect. With respect, High Arbiter, the Council's judgment was based on incorrect assumptions about human nature and potential. We request an immediate hearing to present new evidence that renders the original decision invalid. The Council does not negotiate with quarantine violators, came a new voice, Praetor Zixthara, his mechanical translator giving his words the cold precision of weapons fire. You have 1 hour to withdraw or face the consequences. Sarah had been expecting this response. The intelligence reports had made it clear that the hegemony viewed any challenge to council authority as a direct threat to their own power. Zixthara couldn't allow humanity's return to proceed peacefully because it would establish a precedent that other species might follow. Praetor, we have no intention of withdrawing. However, we also have no intention of engaging in unnecessary conflict. We propose a compromise, a formal challenge under the ancient laws of precedence. The communication channels fell silent. Sarah was invoking legislation that predated the current council structure, laws that had been written when the galaxy was younger and its civilizations more prone to settling disputes through direct competition rather than endless debate. Under the precedence laws, any species that felt wronged by council decisions could challenge the ruling power to a contest of capabilities. The nature of the contest would be determined by mutual agreement, with the understanding that the winner's position would be accepted by all parties. The precedence laws have not been invoked for over 3,000 years. The High Arbiter's mental voice carried overtones of confusion and concern. They are considered obsolete by modern standards. Obsolete law, obsolete judgment, Sarah replied. If the Council wishes to maintain authority over humanity, let them demonstrate that authority through achievement rather than decree. We challenge the hegemony to prove that their way of life is superior to ours. The political implications were staggering. If the Council accepted humanity's challenge and lost, they would be forced to acknowledge human equality and potentially face similar challenges from other species. If they refused, they would appear weak and afraid of a supposedly inferior species. If they accepted and won, they would reinforce their authority over the galaxy. For Zixtara, the choice was even more stark. His entire power structure was built on the premise that the hegemony represented the pinnacle of galactic civilization. Backing down from a challenge by the allegedly primitive humans would undermine everything he had built. Very well. The Praetor's voice carried the satisfaction of a predator sighting prey. The hegemony accepts your challenge, Admiral Chun. The terms will be simple, a contest of military capability. Your primitive fleet against our finest warriors. Sarah felt a moment of genuine sympathy for the alien commander. He was making the exact mistake she had hoped he would make, assuming that military superiority could only be measured in terms of destructive power. Acceptable, with one modification, she replied. The contest will be judged not by destruction, but by achievement. Your forces will attempt to accomplish a specific task, while ours attempts to stop you. Success will be measured by results, not casualties. She transmitted the coordinates of a system on the galaxy's rim, far from any inhabited worlds. The challenge will take place at Kepler 442 in 72 hours. This will give both sides time to prepare and allow neutral observers to witness the contest. As the human fleet prepared to depart for the challenge site, Sarah received a private communication from an unexpected source. Ambassador Veltar's image appeared on her screen, the crystalline being's light patterns indicating extreme agitation. Admiral Chun, I speak now not as a council representative, but as a scientist. What you have demonstrated here today suggests technological capabilities that exceed our theoretical models. Your ships appear to operate on principles we abandoned as impossible millennia ago. Sarah studied the aliens' energy patterns, recognizing genuine curiosity beneath the diplomatic caution. Ambassador, what we've shown you today is merely the surface. Humanity spent 25 years learning what becomes possible when you refuse to accept limitations. The Praetor believes this is a military challenge he can win through superior firepower, Veltar continued. I fear he is making a grave error in judgment. What are you really offering the galaxy? For the first time since arriving at the Nexus, Sarah allowed her expression to become completely serious. Evolution, Ambassador. The chance to grow beyond what you are today. The galaxy has achieved a kind of peace through stagnation, but that peace comes at the cost of progress. We're offering to break that stagnation, to reintroduce the possibility of change. And if we refuse? Sarah's smile returned, carrying implications that made the crystalline being's light patterns flicker with concern. Then, you'll watch as we demonstrate what 25 years of motivated human development can achieve. After that, the choice will still be yours, but the context will be very different. As the human fleet departed for Kepler 442, leaving the Nexus in a state of barely controlled chaos, Sarah began preparing for what would either be humanity's triumphant return to galactic affairs or the opening shot of a war that would transform the galaxy forever. The hegemony was about to learn the difference between technology designed for stability and technology forged in the crucible of human determination. In 72 hours, the galaxy would witness what happened when an unstoppable force met an immovable object, and discovered that the force had learned to reshape the very nature of immovability itself. Hashtag the new galaxy. The Kepler 442 system had become the most watched location in the galaxy. Observer ships from every major council species maintained positions at the system's edge, their sensors focused on the unprecedented confrontation about to unfold between humanity and the hegemony. Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the observation deck of the horizon's edge, watching as the hegemony fleet assumed formation near the system's gas giant. 3,000 ships strong, they represented the finest military technology the galaxy had ever produced. Each vessel was a masterpiece of engineering, armed with weapons that could shatter moons and protected by shields that had never been breached in combat. Supreme Commander Zixtara had chosen his force with care, bringing not just overwhelming firepower, but also representatives from every major military species in the galaxy. The message was clear. This was not merely a hegemony operation, but a demonstration of galactic unity against human presumption. In contrast, humanity had brought exactly 50 ships to the confrontation. To outside observers, The disparity seemed so extreme as to border on madness. What the observers didn't know was that each human vessel represented technologies that had evolved beyond anything in the galactic database. "Admiral, we're receiving the challenge parameters from the Hegemony flagship," reported Commander Park. "They want us to prevent them from establishing a permanent base on the fourth planet of this system. Standard military engagement rules apply." Sarah nodded, having expected something along these lines. Zixtara was thinking in conventional terms. Overwhelming force applied to achieve a specific objective while the enemy attempts to prevent success through direct confrontation. It was exactly the kind of thinking that had allowed galactic civilization to stagnate. "Acknowledge the challenge parameters," she commanded. "Then, transmit our response. The Hegemony has 72 hours to establish their base. If they succeed, we acknowledge their superiority. If they fail, they acknowledge ours." What Sarah didn't mention was her definition of failure. The Hegemony was thinking in terms of whether they could build their base despite human opposition. Sarah was thinking in terms of whether they would want to keep it afterward. As the Hegemony fleet began its approach to the target planet, Sarah activated the human fleet's true capability. "All ships, initiate Phase 1. Show them what 25 years of human development looks like." The transformation was visible even to the distant observers. The 50 human ships suddenly became 500, then 5,000, as each vessel revealed its ability to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. The technology that had briefly placed the horizon's edge in 7 locations was now deployed fleet-wide, creating an apparent numerical parity that defied conventional physics. But numbers were only the beginning. As the Hegemony forces approached the planet, they found their sensors reporting impossible readings. Human ships appeared to be occupying the same space as empty vacuum, their signatures phasing in and out of detectability according to principles that made experienced tactical officers question their sanity. Supreme Commander Zixtara watched the sensor displays with growing alarm. His tactical computers were reporting contact with human vessels in 17 different locations, but visual confirmation showed empty space. Energy weapons fired at human positions passed harmlessly through their targets, as if the ships existed in a slightly different dimension. "How are they doing this?" demanded his tactical officer, a Kethvar whose crystalline form was pulsing with patterns of confusion. "Our weapons can't seem to target them effectively." "Unknown," Zixtara replied, his mechanical translator unable to convey the full depth of his frustration. "Continue with the landing operation. Once we establish surface positions, their tricks will be irrelevant." The landing operation proceeded according to plan, with Hegemony forces establishing a perimeter on the planet's surface and beginning construction of their base. Massive construction vehicles unloaded from the transport ships, their automated systems beginning the process of converting raw planetary materials into fortified positions. For 12 hours, the construction continued unimpeded. The human fleet maintained their positions in orbit, occasionally shifting formation in patterns that seemed random but created a persistent sense of unease among the Hegemony forces. The observers from neutral species reported growing tension as the waiting continued. Then, Dr. Elena Vasquez materialized on the bridge of the Hegemony flagship. Not transmitted, materialized. One moment the bridge was occupied only by alien crew members. The next, a human woman in simple gray clothing stood next to Zixtara's command chair, smiling pleasantly as if she had been invited aboard. "Supreme Commander," she said in perfect Hegemony dialect, "I hope you don't mind my dropping by. I wanted to discuss the terms of your surrender." The bridge erupted in controlled chaos as security officers reached for weapons while sensors screamed warnings about impossible energy readings. Zixtara himself remained frozen, his tactical mind struggling to process how a human had appeared aboard his flagship without triggering any of the ship's defensive systems. "How did you get aboard my ship?" he demanded, his translator adding harmonic patterns of disbelief to his words. "I walked," Elena replied simply. "Oh, I had to step through a few dimensions to get here. But the principle is the same. Space is much more flexible than your people realized." She gestured, and the bridge's main display activated, showing real-time images of the construction operation on the planet below. "You've done excellent work down there. Very efficient, very professional. But I'm afraid there's a problem with your approach." The display zoomed in on the construction site, revealing details that made Zixtara's blood chill. Mixed in with his own forces were human figures, moving through the work areas with casual confidence. They weren't fighting his troops or sabotaging the construction. They were helping. Your people have been working alongside my engineers for the past 6 hours, Elena explained. Wonderful collaboration, actually. Your construction techniques are quite impressive, though somewhat limited by conventional thinking. One of the security officers finally worked up the courage to aim his weapon at Elena. She turned to him with an expression of mild curiosity. Please don't point that at me. The quantum uncertainty field around my body tends to redirect energy weapons in unpredictable directions. Last time someone tried to shoot me, the beam ended up hitting a moon 3 star systems away. The officer slowly lowered his weapon. Now then, Elena continued, returning her attention to Zixtara, let's discuss your situation. You've successfully established a base on the planet, which technically fulfills the challenge parameters. However, there are a few details you might want to consider. The display shifted to show a wider view of the planetary surface. The hegemony base was there, exactly as constructed, but it was no longer alone. Surrounding it in all directions were structures that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen. Towering spires that reached into the upper atmosphere, connected by bridges that seemed to be made of crystallized space itself. We've built a small demonstration city around your base, Elena explained conversationally. Nothing too elaborate, just a showcase of what human engineering can achieve when we're not constrained by quarantine barriers. Population capacity is roughly 50 million, with room for expansion. Zixtara stared at the images, his mind reeling. The structures shown on the display represented construction on a scale that should have taken decades, involving technologies that shouldn't have been possible. Yet the timestamps showed they had been built in the 12 hours since his forces had landed. This is impossible, he whispered. That word doesn't mean what it used to, Elena replied gently. Supreme Commander, your species has achieved remarkable things. Your military efficiency is genuinely impressive, and your organizational capabilities are second to none. But you've been thinking small. She waved her hand, and the display expanded to show the entire solar system. Where before there had been 8 planets and scattered asteroids, now there was something that made Zixtara question his sanity. Orbital habitats connected the worlds in a vast network, their number and complexity suggesting a population in the trillions. The star itself had been partially enclosed in collection arrays that harvested energy on a scale that boggled comprehension. We've been busy, Elena said with obvious satisfaction. 72 hours was more than enough time to establish a permanent presence in this system. Not just a base, but a complete civilization. Your challenge was to stop us from achieving our objective. I'm afraid you failed rather spectacularly. The Supreme Commander slumped in his command chair, the weight of complete defeat settling on his shoulders. How is this possible? The energy requirements alone are manageable when you stop thinking about energy as a finite resource, Elena replied. Matter and energy are just different expressions of the same underlying reality. Once you understand how to manipulate that reality directly, the universe becomes much more cooperative. She moved to the tactical display, her fingers dancing over controls that responded to her touch despite being biometrically locked to hegemony personnel. New information cascaded across the screens, technical specifications, energy readings, and construction details that revealed the true scope of human achievement. This is what 25 years of human development looks like when we're properly motivated, she continued. Your council thought they were protecting the galaxy from human expansion. What they actually did was give us time to evolve beyond anything you could imagine. Zixtara found his voice with effort. What do you want from us? Elena's expression became serious. Partnership, Supreme Commander. Not conquest, not dominance, partnership. The galaxy has achieved a stable equilibrium, but stability without growth is just stagnation with better public relations. We're offering to break that stagnation, to reintroduce the possibility of progress. She gestured to the displays showing the human constructions. Everything you see here could be duplicated throughout the galaxy. Every species could achieve this level of development, could transcend their current limitations, and become something greater. But It requires accepting that change is not a threat to be controlled. It's an opportunity to be embraced. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Elena wasn't just demonstrating human superiority, she was offering to share it. The technologies displayed represented capabilities that could transform any civilization willing to abandon their attachment to the status quo. The challenge is complete, Elena announced. The hegemony has failed to prevent human achievement, and, according to the terms we agreed upon, this constitutes acknowledgement of human superiority. However, we're not interested in ruling over stagnant civilizations. She turned to face Zixtara directly. We're offering the galaxy a choice. Embrace change, accept growth, and join us in building something unprecedented. Or maintain your current course, and watch as we demonstrate what becomes possible when you stop accepting limitations. The Supreme Commander looked at the displays showing human achievements that made his finest military accomplishments look like children's games. And if we refuse? Elena's smile carried implications that made the bridge crew unconsciously step backward. Then, you'll have the privilege of watching us build a galactic civilization that makes your current achievements look quaint by comparison. We won't conquer you. We don't need to. We'll simply grow around you until the contrast becomes so obvious that your own people demand change. She began to fade from view, her form becoming translucent as she prepared to return to her own dimension. The choice is yours, Supreme Commander. Evolution or extinction. Progress or irrelevance. We'll be waiting for your answer. As Elena disappeared completely, leaving only the lingering scent of ozone and the soft hum of residual quantum energy, Zixtara stared at the displays showing human achievements that redefined what was possible. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders that he was no longer sure he had the authority to give. In the observation area, representatives from every major council species watched the feeds from the hegemony flagship with growing understanding. The demonstration was over, but its implications would reshape the galaxy for generations to come. Humanity had returned not as conquered exiles seeking readmission, but as the architects of a new age. The galaxy would either join them in that construction or find itself relegated to irrelevance as human civilization expanded beyond anything their former captors could imagine. The quarantine had ended not with humanity's return to galactic society, but with galactic society's invitation to join the human future. The choice now belonged to 10,000 species who would decide whether they were ready to become something more than they had ever dared to dream. The age of stagnation was over. The age of infinite possibility had begun.